The love affair between men and cars is an old story, and the reasons for it are many. Probably the strongest is the thrill that a true car lover feels from the power, agility, and responsiveness of a truly fine automobile. We in America are at a time when concern for safety and environment are threatening much of what makes men love cars. Here we test an Oldsmobile 442 convertible, a car that has just about everything that car lovers love.
Convertibles have been on the way out for years, yet this Olds is clean, husky, and handsome. The front is uncluttered, with a down-to-business feeling about it. It's a muscle machine, and they haven't tried to hide it. The 442 sits wide on the road, big enough to enjoy, even if you have friends. Under the hood, the biggest of the big in the cubic inch race, the Olds 455 Cube V8, with all the goodies that have made W30 synonymous with power. It's a strong, smooth engine that's always ready to put the torque where you need it. We knew it'd run. It gave us 0 to 30 in 2.7 seconds, the kind of acceleration you may never use until that one time on the road. The 442 stopped the clock at 4.9 seconds for 0 to 50. It always came on straight and sure. 0 to 70 is a long haul, but the Olds did it in 7.3 seconds. It all proves that the juice is there if you ever need it to get out of the way. They're no good if they don't handle. The Olds dance through the tight pylon course like a ballerina. Never a loss of control. Minimum body roll, quick, sure steering. If this car runs the pylons like this, it'll forgive any sudden movement of the wheel on the highway. It'll do what a good car is supposed to. A slow motion look at that again, and it appears easy. Notice how the front and rear stay together. The Oldsmobile engineers have done this one right on. It's a 3,600-pound brute, but it steers and handles like a lightweight. Front-wheel disc brakes have been a blessing to strong cars. This 442 stopped from 30 miles an hour in 37 feet. 30 doesn't sound like much until you have to throw the anchor out. It took our driver 87 feet to halt the Olds at 50 miles an hour. There's still time enough for a heads-up driver. 70 miles per hour is fast. We've all been on highways where it's the cruising speed. The Olds used up 191 feet to a standstill from 70. When you're driving that fast, you better leave some room. Oh, that convertible and that great feeling of freedom. On the tight corners, it sat low, went where it was sent. Spinning a car out in reverse is the best test of stability there is. And the 442 came out of this one like a champ. If it doesn't misbehave here, it never will. An expert driver can make any car do tricks, but it was especially easy in this Oldsmobile. There wasn't a button on it that didn't come from the factory. Nothing that any buyer couldn't order. And the stock heavy-duty suspension was all that anyone would ever need for the security and enjoyment of hard cornering. Finely engineered suspension will never be on the anti-auto list. It doesn't add to the pollution, and it doesn't make a car anything but safer and more pleasurable to drive. The 442 W30 suspension is one of the best. No, we haven't said anything bad about this car. Matter of fact, we've kind of enjoyed throwing it the accolades. Sure, we could have nitpicked about the ashtray or the rear legroom or something. But there was so much to like in the 442, and we're going to miss what progress takes from it.
Buick Grand Sport Stage 1 is as close as we've been to a supercar since 1971. Without a doubt, Buick Division is making an honest attempt to build better cars. And this one puts them in a class by themselves. With today's popularity of recycling, it came as no real surprise that Buick returned to the Century nameplate. There's a total of 25 new model Buicks to choose from, and 9 of them fall in the intermediate or Century line. Our tester was the Grand Sport and was hatched in Buick Engineering's muscle department. They promised us some excitement when we took delivery of the car, and much of it was caused by this 455 cubic inch high-performance mill under the hood, topped off with a 4-barrel carburetor and a whole gang of exhaust emission control devices. Even though they hindered breathing, performance was good. In our bury the foot game, it felt strong. 30 miles an hour came after only 3.2 seconds. This is as close to a supercar as anything we've had since breathing clean air became popular. 50 miles an hour happened 5.8 seconds after we left the line. 70 miles an hour took 10.4 seconds, and she broke through the traps at the end of the quarter mile in 15.3. And out of today's showroom, that's good. For a long time, Buick brakes have been some of the best in the industry. They still are. This 30 mile an hour stop took 41 feet. Front disc brakes are standard this year on the Century model, and heat dissipation was excellent. This stop from 50 ate up 89 feet. After several high-speed stops, brake fade was only minimal. All stops were made in a good straight line. This one from 70 took 203 feet. With a stiffer suspension, nosedive was very slight. We wanted to see how this suspension system would look under the severest strain, so we put it through the reverse spin. It went through the 180 degrees like she could do it all day long. The pylon course gave us little or no problems. Body lean was very slight. Going from a hard right to an immediate hard left turn, there was a slight hesitation in the steering wheel, caused by a failure of the power steering unit to keep up with the demand on the wheel. However, it was not bad. In some cars, the pause is so great and wheel movement so difficult that we're unable to run through the pylons. Even with an increase in speed to 40 miles per hour, rebound and recovery were excellent. The AccuDrive front suspension allowed very little wandering or wallowing. This forward spin proved the car to be very predictable. We've only tested a very few cars this year that we could push through the turns at high speed and stay on the track. This Grand Sport was one of them. While this 455 cubic incher only delivered 270 net horsepower, there was still enough wallop to drive it through the corners with the throttle. With the Grand Sport, Buick offers an excellent compromise between good handling and a smooth ride. This intermediate series shares many features with the big Buicks, such as a double panel roof construction, disc brakes, fiberglass underhood insulation, and AccuDrive that combines tailored suspension and steering geometries with engine mountings, suspension bushings, and body mountings specifically selected for each model. Buick officials told us that each part on every engine is checked to see if it works properly before it ever leaves the sub-assembly plant. Then each installed part is fed in a central computer during build-up. So before the engine is ever fired up, they know how well it'll run and how pure its exhaust will be. Remember, our test car is a Grand Sport with a heavy-duty suspension and greater power package. Other models in the Century line will not handle this well. In this stop action, the car was in a four-wheel drift, stayed flat and controllable through a very difficult reverse camber turn at over 75 miles per hour. There was a lot of talk about Buick's successes at the drag strips in 1972. This performance talk was carefully woven into the theme that computer checking and quality control not only produce good, clean engines, but good, clean racers. This is not an old man's car, and it might be that the GS Stage 1 is Phase 1 in a program to alter Buick's entire image.
The popularity of the mini car is sweeping the country like a prairie fire. Many are now being produced in this country, and even more are imported from overseas. Well, at any rate, they're descending on the American highways at a fantastic rate. For some, they represent a second car. For others, a fad. And then, too, there's a great many motorists who find them just pure fun to drive. Well, whichever category you fall in, you may want to take a second look at this Opel Manta Luxus.
The Manta Luxus is the big news in the Opel line for this year. It uses the same basic body as the 1900 Sport Coupe, which it replaced. Inside, the luxury trim sets this car apart as something special. It gives a pretty stiff ride on this 95.7-inch wheelbase with a 165 by 13 tire size. Special ornamentation and paint colors distinguish the Manta from the rest of the Opel line. It was anything but quick coming off the line. 30 miles an hour took 5.1 seconds. It might do a little better running downhill. With the tires hot, we clocked 45 in 9.5 seconds. The 115 cubic inch engine only delivers about 75 net horsepower with a 7.5 to 1 compression ratio. 60 miles per hour ate up 16.2 seconds on the clock. In our passing test, 50 to 80 miles an hour took 13.9 seconds and 1,297 feet. Our German Mini was a lot quicker at stopping than starting. From 30, 38 feet. After several high-speed stops, heat buildup was not noticeable. The pedal faded very little. From 50, we ground to a halt in 72 feet. In this 70-mile-an-hour panic stop, a slight correction was necessary to keep it straight. The brakes were cold, and it used 191 feet of the asphalt before it stopped. Most of these little imports we've tested have one thing in common. They handle well. The Opel is no exception. The car snaked through the cones in excellent shape. It was while running the pylon course that we learned to appreciate the wraparound bucket seats. They gave good lateral support, and with additional padding in the cushion and back, seemed quite comfortable. This head-on run in slow motion shows very little body lean. Front and rear both track well, and recovery was good, even toward the end of the run, where momentum buildup is the greatest. Out on the track, we got our tester up to speed and found that cornering was kind of fun. With a bigger mill up front, it could have been an outright ball. On entering a turn, the stability was good, and the front end stuck well. There wasn't enough muscle to power it through a turn, and even less coming out. But this 1.9-liter engine is the only thing available for the entire Opel line. With the stiff suspension and short wheelbase, riding characteristics are not the best. But then that's typical of subcompacts. Visibility in the Opel Manta is excellent. All instrumentation is simple and located directly in front of the driver. Seating room up front is ample. In the rear, ridiculous. As far as the mini category is concerned, we rated the Opel high, and the Manta Luxus is the cream puff of the line. Getting into the subcompact field necessitates a sacrifice in comfort as well as performance. However, we feel that with the Opel, that sacrifice is not as great. Voila! They finally did it. They put the old Cutlass in a new box. For the past 2 or 3 years, there were strong rumors reflecting a body change for GM Intermediates, and here it is. Our tester came with enough goodies to run the window sticker all the way around the car, like this plexiglass sunroof. Swivel bucket seats made entry and exit very easy. Both the bumper and the grille give way in the event of impact. We might add that these seats were probably the most comfortable in the industry, giving excellent back as well as side support. Our Cutlass had the 455 cube mil up front, but our acceleration runs were not neck snappers. 30 miles an hour took 3.5 seconds. Even with a 4-barrel carb, our net horsepower had shrunken considerably over the 1971 models. This one, 225. 0 to 50 in 5.5 seconds. Before emission control systems were added, this car would make the 0 to 70 run in the high 7s. Now it ate up 10.8 seconds on the clock. Brakes were good in the Cutlass. From 30 miles an hour, the stop came 40 feet later. With the discs hot, she wanted to pull to the right, and quite a bit of correction was necessary to keep it in a straight line. We used up 93 feet on this 50-mile-an-hour stop. This is the all-out 70-mile-an-hour panic run, and zowie, watch the nosedive. We didn't realize it was this great until we checked the film. It looked like it was going to burrow beneath the track. 198 feet to the stop. Our tester had the 442 suspension package, but it seemed as though they softened the spring rates because there was a great deal more body roll through the pylon course than previous 442s. The outside front corner displayed considerable dive. However, the front end showed no tendency to wash out, and the rear followed through in good shape. We rated rebound and recovery about average. It was the reverse spin that showed the suspension system to be a lot softer than other 442s we've tested. With all the slack out on one side, body lean was very noticeable, inside as well as out. Our Cutlass took to high-speed cornering on the track better than it did to the tighter turns through the pylon. Even with the additional weight from the big engine, the front end hung in well through all the corners. Riding characteristics were excellent. The 442 option this year is primarily a sport appearance package, including a specific grille, hood louvers, side striping, hood and deck striping, and the special suspension package consists of front and rear stabilizer bars, higher spring rates, and shock absorbers. The new Cutlass engines employ a flex head intake valve, producing lower valve temperatures, along with hardened exhaust valve seats. The use of valve rotators is being continued. The generator incorporates an integral regulator, and an idle stop solenoid eliminates dieseling in all engines. An exhaust gas recirculation system has been added to V8 engines, and Oldsmobile officials claim that drivability, fuel economy, and performance have been maintained at past levels. Fuel consumption on our test car averaged out at about 10 miles per gallon. Whether this new body will be around as long as the last one, we don't know. But it is a good, clean styling job and should receive excellent consumer reaction. Due to certain restrictions placed on the automakers, performance is not as good as a 1971 442. However, by today's standards, it's a good car and should keep Oldsmobile sales charts on the rise. hottest selling Minis in America are the Chevy Vega and this, the Ford Pinto Runabout. Our Pinto tester is the sport version, loaded with everything from two-tone paint job to special wheels and interior trim. Oh yes, and a window sticker price tag of $3,918. For this price, you get fresh air and all the elements right through the roof. The little horse has a 4-cylinder inline engine, 140 cubic inches worth, fed through a 2-barrel carburetor and an automatic transmission. The Vega also has a 140 cubic incher with 4 inline cylinders and a 2-barrel car. And to keep everything even, another automatic transmission. The tester we used for the Vega was this wagon featuring the deluxe wood grain trim, a special interior, plus a similar $3,900 price tag. We took the Vega off the line first and clocked a 0 to 60 run in 5.3 seconds. 45 miles per hour took 10 seconds flat. Our car had the 292 rear axle ratio, which replaced last year's 336. The third time we popped the little Chevy out of the hole, we headed for 60 miles an hour. It happened after 16.2 seconds. During all runs, noise was less noticeable than on previous models. The Pinto compared quite favorably in acceleration runs. 30 miles an hour took 5.8 seconds. The Scat to 45 stopped the clock in 9.8 seconds. The 2-liter engine is now standard on all Pinto models and really hypos the performance figures. Our 0 to 60 run ate up 16.4 seconds on the clock. It took the Vega 6.9 seconds to move the speedo needle from 30 to 50 miles per hour. The Pinto Runabout ran the same spread in 6.6 seconds. These passing times are pretty important, especially when you relate it to getting around a truck on a 2-lane road. The Vega moved from 50 to 70 miles per hour in 10 seconds. The Pinto was a shade quicker on the same run, clocking a 9.8 seconds. We rated the Pinto a little higher in acceleration and passing runs. In the braking test, we found both cars to have discs up front with drums in the rear. On the Vega's first run from 30 miles per hour, it took 30 feet to stop. The 50-mile-an-hour stop chewed up 91 feet before we brought it to a halt. From 70 with cold brakes, the Vega made this stop in 192 feet. There was a slight pull to the left. However, nosedive was not noticeable, nor was pedal fade. The brakes dissipated heat rapidly. Our Pinto used up 29 feet in a stop from 30. A little correction was necessary to keep it in a straight line. From 50, 89 feet. The stop from 70 took quite a bit of correction, and it still wandered off to the left. 188 feet later, it came to a halt. Nosedive and pedal fade were quite noticeable, and there was some degree of heat buildup. While the Pinto had shorter stopping distances, we have to give the nod to the Vega in the braking department. The overall weight of the Vega was increased over last year's model. This showed up in the pylon runs. Recovery was not too good, especially toward the end of the run. I think you'll agree that rebound and recovery were better in the Pinto.